Hello everyone and welcome to the Aylowe game channel. So previously I have done the start of a few Let's Plays that I do intend to continue with at some stage, and the last videos I've done were a graveyard scene that I modelled in 3D Studio Max. Now, as I've said before, this channel is to document my journey through college and the stuff that I'm learning and the stuff that I'm developing while in college. Studying game development, and the 3D modeling one was it was an assignment for 3ds Max, so it was never used in a game, it was never meant for a game. So this video is the first video I'm recording the audio over from my very first year of actual game development, so I'm quite excited about this because we finally get to see Unity and we get to see C# and my amazing programming skills, which should be interesting to see how long I have to pause to go and look stuff up. So as we can see on the screen here, this is not the first, I'm not recording it from a blank Unity scene. What I've done is I've gotten the ships, so all these Star Sparrows was a Unity asset pack from the asset store. So I just brought them in, I got a background, spacey background, put that in. But this is quite early on. Obviously I can't go into any of these, but it doesn't look like I have a folder for scripts. So I've done no coding yet, I've just set up the scene, so nothing actually works as of yet. So let's get this started and see what I'm doing. So basically the assignment was to create a racing game in Unity. Now most of the people in my class took that and did a standard car racing game, which is fine. But me being the huge sci-fi nerd that I am, I decided to go and make a space racing game, which is arguably a little bit more difficult, I think, because obviously everyone else was getting help with how to get the car to move on the ground in 2 dimensions, basically, because it wasn't going up or down, whereas I had to do a whole completely different thing. 3-dimensional fly around space, rigid body, as I say as I'm adding it. So I'm adding forces to a rigid body to get these to move in 3 dimensions. So one of them is the player, and the other 2 obviously will be AI controlled, and we'll go navigate through the course as once I actually build a course, because right now it's just a blank scene with 3 ships. So, and yes, once again I do have my trusty can of Red Bull to keep me going through all this. Through the boredom, keep me awake. Okay. So colliders, I still have an issue with colliders with objects that I don't make myself. The convex collider, as you can see, has a very it has a very strange shape to it. So it conforms to it's supposed to conform to the shape of the object, but you can see it's coming out here. So it's conforming to more like the angles of the object. So if anything was to hit here, if I was to collide with a ship, you would see that it wouldn't actually hit off the ship. Whereas I could do box colliders for the front, and then a box collider here and a box collider here, which would be an easier way to do it, I guess. But I don't think I actually get around to doing that for this, because it's not that important. It is a racing game, you're not supposed to really hit them, and you'll be moving so fast that you really won't notice. So now I'm going to set up the script to try and get the player to move when I play the game. So I think last year I'd done one other game before this, a small prototype for a maze game, so I know a little bit about player movement at this stage and a tiny bit of coding, but let's see how I get on, because I don't think I know very much at this stage. So I'm actually quite interested to see just how many pauses there are, and how many mistakes, and how many times I have to go back and delete something, or think I have something done right and it just doesn't work and it's not throwing up any errors. That still happens to me now, and it bugs the crap out of me, even though there's no bugs in the game from the script. There's bugs in my mind. So yeah, waiting for Visual Studio to load. Which I could just edit out and come back when it is loaded. But I say that so much, and then I never do. But I might. There we go. So whenever you open a script in Visual Studio, this is what you get. This is the default layout of the script. You get a start function and an update function. And then you just go from there and make whatever you need to make. So, serialized fields, yeah. I still have, not arguments, but disagreements with my coding teacher in college about using serialized fields. I know about this from doing an online course, a Udemy course, before I went to college, and in that they use serialized fields for any private variables, so that they can appear in the inspector, and you can manipulate them and change the values so that you don't have to keep going into the script and changing the code. So for this one it's the thrust, so the private float thrust. So that is the amount, is basically the number for how the speed of the character. Now I'm putting in an arbitrary number because I don't know what is 100 in terms of unity measurements, because it's not 100 meters per second, it's not 100 kilometers per hour, it's basically just 100 unity units, as far as I know. So you make it private because it doesn't need to be accessed by another script. If you make them public, I've heard that some scripts can interact with each other in strange ways. I've not seen it yet because I put everything on private that I don't need public. But you use serialized fields, so you don't have to keep coming back and forth to change the variable in script. So you can just do it from the inspector. But my teacher just says it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing to do. I don't know why. He doesn't like it, but I still do it to this day. So I'm trying to make a function to move the player. So I'm going to say if input.getKey. So if you're pressing the key W, then it's going to do something. If you're not pressing the W key, it won't do anything. A lot of scripting, I was told you can script anything with if statements and booleans, booleans being true or false. So it's either yes or no. So I need to access the rigid body. We saw me put the rigid body on the player character. The rigid body is basically, it allows physics to operate on that object, whatever object you place it onto. So it can use gravity, and then you can add forces to it, and it can do other physics stuff that I haven't gotten around to learning yet, but I just know rigid body is for physics. Now here I'm making it a public rigid body so that I can assign it in the inspector, but I don't need to. And you'll see when we get onto the stuff that I'm actually doing this year, I never actually make a public rigid body equal to null. I never do that either. Don't know why. I don't know why. I've seen some people on tutorials do it equal to null. It's not necessary. From what they say, they end up just going back and deleting it afterwards, so like I've just done. Now I'm making it a private rigid body, which makes more sense because you don't actually need to assign it in the inspector. You can assign it in the code. Rigid body. Yep. You also don't need, I was just going to say, you don't need to make a private rigid body. If you don't put private in front of it, it defaults to private. So, and this is how you would assign it in code. Rigid body is equal to get component of type rigid body. So at the start, it will, whatever object this script is on, it will go through every component on that script, on that object rather, and it'll find a rigid body component, and it will then assign that to the rigid lowercase or rigid body. It took me ages to wrap my head around this, of naming things the same as the actual component. So you're naming your rigid body rigid body. Some people name it ORB, because then you go, well, which one is which? You just get used to it, basically. Or at least I have, so. Now I'm going to need to add some force. So if you're going, W would be forward, I would imagine. Sorry, it's my family were doing some gardening and mowing the lawn, cutting the grass. wherever you're from, however you say it. And as I've said in a previous video, I'm suffering pretty badly with hay fever at the minute, and I can already feel my eyes burning from the pollen from the grass. So rigid body dot add force to be a vector 3 force, and I pass in the thrust value. Forward, yeah. So that's going in the forward direction. If I didn't put forward in there, I'd have to actually have the 3 coordinates, so the x, y, and z coordinate, because a vector 3 is obviously a coordinate system for the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis, so you can find a place. But this is basically, if you put vector 3 dot forward, you're basically telling it to move along the forward axis, which would be the z-axis. And you can also do vector 3 dot right and vector 3 dot up. And if you want to go backwards, left, or down, you would do negative vector 3 dot forward, up, or right. But there is no vector 3 dot left or vector 3 dot down. It's just the negative value of the up. Multiplied by thrust, which could also have been called speed, and by time dot delta time, that just smooths it out over. So depending on your frame rate, so if I got a machine that has a low frame rate, it shouldn't be as different. It should just smooth it out over whatever frame rate, whatever I'm trying to say. Yeah, so a machine with higher frame rate, it'll look the same on that. It will move the same distance as it would on a machine with a lower frame rate. I think. I'm still learning, I don't know. Like I said, this is not a tutorial, this is just me trying to remember stuff. Although, I wouldn't have even been able to attempt to explain that when I was doing this last year, so at least now I have an idea. And it's not working. I press play, I hit W, it doesn't move forward at all. And this is what I mean. Coding is very much a problem-solving exercise in that. And you'll see I've only done W. I haven't actually gone on to getting the entire ship to move in all directions yet, because if I know that it will work for W, then you basically just duplicate the code and change the directions. So there's no point in writing a whole movement function for every direction and every key press if it's not working. Print W pressed just means when I press W, it'll show up in the console that, W pressed. Whatever appears in this string. Now you can do that, GameObject.getComponent. As far as I've seen people do GameObject.getComponent. I've seen people not just do, just get component. GameObject just means the game object that this script is on. But it's not going to, because this script is on this game object, it's not going to get it from any other game object unless you were to actually try and, make it do that, which you can do, but it's not what we're trying to do for this. We're just trying to get this to move forward when I hit W. Hit play. Now, I know... No, I don't. Oh, I have. Okay. Is it... No. There's 2 things here, right? In my console, there's nothing down there, so this is the console here. It would show W press there. Ah. Okay. Yes, I have not declared it anywhere. So I'm just going to pause this here for a sec. So I've created this function, void move player, but I'm not calling it anywhere. So when the game starts, I'm setting the rigid body. Update is every frame. So this will only happen if I tell it to happen somewhere. So in void update, now every frame is going to check, is the W key pressed? And if it is, it's going to add force. I still to this day sometimes write a ton of code that I assume will work because I've done it before and I'm fairly certain, and I just forget to put it into update. The other things would have been I've forgotten to add the script to the object. That's another mistake I make, and I thought that's the mistake I'd made there. But the script is on the object. I just never actually called move player in update, so it was never going to work. Silly mistakes, but easy to make. So we'll see. The other thing is that there we go. I was going to say, because the background isn't moving, if the camera was moving with the player, we probably wouldn't even know it was moving, because there's nothing to orient yourself on in the game view, because nothing's moving. The background won't move, there's nothing there to show that you're moving. But yeah, it's quite slow, so you can see 100 sounds like a lot, but you can see there that it wasn't. It was a very slow moving ship. So now I'm actually going to, so now the camera will move with the player. And I think this is where I noticed, you can see it on the ship was there. But I can't tell that I'm moving because there's no frame of reference for it. Like you can see there's a bit of the other ship just there. So when I hit play, oh yeah, so also you can look at it in the scene view. So the ship is moving, you just can't tell. So obviously for this to be a race and for people to know that they are actually moving, I need to put stuff into the scene so that they can get that frame of reference for distance and speed. Oh, so now I'm going to rotate it, because it is a ship, yeah. So it's not necessarily going to... I think in the end I do have strafing, rotating, and then moving. I don't think I have a moving backwards, but I don't know. It's actually quite funny. This year I had to do something and I was trying to add forces to the rigid body. So to move a ship, basically it was another sci-fi, it was a travel scene for a group project. So we were doing a first-person shooter, and then when you were on a base and you got a mission, and then you'd go to your ship and you'd take off, and then there'd be a cutscene that would have the ship take off and leave the space station, and then the camera would zoom out and it would become a 2D Space Invaders type mini game, basically, as you travel to the planet to actually go and do the mission. And I was working on that, the 2D travel scene, and so it's basically the same as this, only easier because it's in 2 dimensions. It's basically just, up, down, left, right. And I couldn't for the life of me remember how to do rigid body to add force to get movement. I eventually figured it out, but what I could have done was just come back and watch this. And I should have. Which is the whole point of these things, is to go back, in the future, if I run into a problem of something I know I've done before, I can come back and look at these kind of stuff. So this is me going off and looking up how to do rotations. So I was going to say something, but I don't know what it was. There we go. So input mouse. Would it be mouse? See, I actually can't remember how to do this myself. No, because I'm gonna. It's not to do with the mouse. So which it's still going to be a get key. I think I realised that in a few minutes. I know in previous videos I've spoken about how long these videos are. Because in the last one, in the Aylowe's Graveyard Part 2, it was a 3-hour video, but only 1 hour of actual stuff happening, and then 2 hours of my desktop, as I had obviously left the computer and forgot to turn off OBS. But in saying that, I realised afterwards that my face actually covers the amount of time. So, yeah. So there's no point in me pointing that out. Because this video is actually 3 hours long. 3 hours, 4 hours? 2 hours and 44 minutes left. Yeah, so it's, almost 4 hours. So I'm obviously going to break that up into chunks, but we'll see how much of it is me actually going off and YouTubing stuff. Or Googling. And how much work is actually there. But, yeah, because I thought people would get scared if they were able to see a 4-hour video here and think that I was actually going to talk for 4 hours straight, which, as much as I like to talk, I couldn't do it for 4 hours. So I'm doing this with the mouse. So when you fly, my mouse A and D would strafe it. Moving the mouse, well, I suppose you could move it up and down. I think that's probably what I'm trying to do. Mouse X would be left and right. Mouse Y would be vertical. Get axis. Okay, we're going to see if this works. I do believe that these values, mouse X and mouse Y, are Unity defaults that can be found if you go into your project settings and inputs. So input.getAxis is a Unity thing. Yeah. I'm doing a third-person, again, sci-fi game this year. And I have the mouse movement just for rotating left and right, for spinning the character around. And I need to implement up down, but I haven't done that yet. And I can't remember how I did it. So I have no idea. But sure, learning is part of the fun. That's why we go to college. I am actually moving stuff. I would assume that you would have to say that if mouse X is greater than 0, you rotate the character because you have your mouse, right? Okay. So your mouse will be at 0. If you move it that way, it goes positive on the X, and that way is negative on the X. So you're going positive, you're turning right, you're going negative, you're turning left. So the other thing about coding is that there is no one way to do everything, so this might actually work. This may not. I know I get it to work eventually, but I don't know how long it takes me or how many different iterations of code I go through. Transform.local Euler angles. Transform.local.x. So the Euler angles, the Euler angles, however you pronounce that, it is a mathematical thing, and I don't do well with maths, so I don't know. Transform.y plus mouse X. Okay, so you're saying that if I rotate transform, so the rotation, the local rotation of the object that this script is on is going to be a new vector 3 with its x rotation, its current x rotation, its current y rotation plus whatever you get on the x. This is for the y value, and then your current z rotation. Now, to my mind, this isn't going to work, because that means by moving my mouse left and right, I'm going to change the, but I'm rotating around. That's what I need to keep remembering, is that I'm not moving on the y-axis, I'm rotating around the y-axis. So if you imagine the y-axis as a pole, I'm rotating around the pole. So yeah. So then if I want to look up and down, it's actually the x-axis that you need to be changing. And the z-axis would be kind of like to do a barrel roll kind of thing. So maybe this will work. I'm sure I'll test it out and see, and hopefully soon. Again, I think I got this online, this code, either online or in another Udemy course or online tutorial or YouTube kind of thing, and I didn't understand anything it was saying. So I wouldn't have been able to explain what this was or why it worked. I would have just copied it down and went, hey, it works. So it's nice to know that in just a year of studying, I can at least understand code that I read, even if I don't necessarily know how to write it myself. Sometimes. So I'm doing another float. For what? I assume it has to have. I have to have an amount. Yeah, here we go. Amount sensitivity. Mouse sensitivity. Yeah, I know that using that you can adjust how much it moves. So a higher value would make it kind of, you move the mouse a little bit and it'll go boom, and a lower value you can move the mouse a lot and it would track quite slowly. So you multiply by mouse sensitivity. It's basically multiplying it by speed. And you'll see if it works. So when I move the mouse, so I can move forward. Oh, there's errors. Get access. Get access not allowed to be called from a mono behavior. Constructor or instance field initializer. So you can see it tells you where. Oh, also again, yeah. See, I never put it into the update. I don't know if that will make those errors go away, because I'm not quite sure what they were talking about. But they didn't stop me from playing the game. Normally, if it was a serious error, it would say you need to fix all compiler errors. So I can move forward slowly. No rotation happening. Really fast. Definitely nothing happening. Fire, mouse sensitivity. Oh, there you go. So you can see 5. Just doesn't. So go back to 1. So it goes one way but not the other. Why would that be, I wonder? It goes in the positive but not the negative. I think I know why. I'm just not saying because I want to see how long it takes me to figure it out. But I do believe I've already said it. You know, it's a shame I didn't record audio over this, because I'd love to know what was going through my head at this time. What I was actually thinking. Especially doing that, I don't know why I did that. See, I think the problem is that I'm doing plus mouse X, which is only going to do a positive. I need to have a way to also access the negative mouse X. That might actually be better. Yeah. You see, just putting a bracket in helps. See, because without the bracket, what I was saying was you're adding on mouse X, which was the value for the input mouse axis. So I was adding that on, Now with the bracket in, I was adding just beautiful ship flying around. Yeah, so doing plus mouse X without the bracket, you can only go up. It's adding on it. It can't subtract. If you do plus bracket, the what's the word? Not the variable. The value for mouse X, you're gonna add that on by mouse sensitivity. So even if it can be a negative. So if it's like, yeah, does that make sense? Am I making sense? I don't know. It makes sense in my head. If anybody knows how better to explain it, you can comment below and tell me what an idiot I am, and tell me how easy it is or how wrong I am, and tell people the correct way to explain it. And also where to find some good tutorials, because as I say, these are not tutorials, these are just diaries, dev diaries, I guess. College diaries. So now that I know that works, I can do the rest of the movement. So it would be key code A to move, so that's going to be strafing, A and D. I've got the mouse movement going left and right, so then I just need to do the same for up and down. A and D strafe, and then if I want S to go back. And then that's my movement code. Pretty simple, really. So I don't know why I'm pausing here. Which body dot add relative? It's basically the same as this, except for A. So you're going to be going, A is right. So you'd be going vector 3 dot right times thrust times time dot delta time. I'm curious to see what I'm doing. What am I doing? Oh, I think I'm looking up code from a previous thing. Or trying to. Don't look at all my stupid shit. What am I looking for? I may edit this out. I know I say that so many times, but oh, there's my maze game. My maze game would have a script for rotating or strafing. So you're looking for, yeah, so that's my maze game. Well, you know what, let's leave this in and have a look. So you can see a completed script that I did. So the maze game would have been the first game that I'd done. So it would have been the first time I've written code. So as you can see, but I'm not using rigid bodies because I'm moving a player character, not a spaceship. There are basically three ways that I have learned to move a character, and that's to use rigid bodies and force, which is usually only done when you need physics, so more for cars, spaceships, vehicles, that kind of thing. Not used as much for players. It interferes with other things that I have found to my detriment. You can use animation using root motion, so it actually takes the movement of the animation and uses that to move. Or you can use transform.translate, which basically takes the coordinates. It's basically changing the actual coordinate values, the current vector 3 of the object. Now I have tried to use all three of them at the same time by accident. I say by accident, I just didn't know any better. I mean, I purposefully put all three of them on, and that did not end well, so pick one, stick with it. Each have their own advantages and disadvantages depending on exactly what you want to do. So for this, I'm now saying, okay, yeah. Huh. And this is the problem with transform.translate. Because if you use transform.translate, this is your transform. Right? Every object has a transform, So you've got your position, your rotation, your scale. So you can transform to translate your position, which will just change it. You can transform, so you can access all of these within the transform. So if you're moving by changing this, what I have found is that it's, you know, it just, like, look at that. What is that? 54,794.83 on the X. You can be bloody sure it started off at 0. So whatever I added in, because it's also doing it every frame, so even if you just put in 1, every frame it will go up by 1. And I think I put in 100, so it's zoom. It'll either do that or it'll set it to exactly the value that you put in. I've tried to hit play on a recording. Oh yes. Yeah, I find transform to translate. I find it finicky. I don't think I fully understand it yet. I don't think I know how to use it properly. I can't remember what I did for my current project that I'm working on. Obviously, because the movement was the first thing that I did. So the script I've done, I've done 15 or 16 scripts for it now. So a lot of code gone into that. So it's difficult to remember exactly what way I did it. Okay. See, I want to strafe. So what am I doing here? So I've done... Okay. So the thrusts... But wasn't the thrust 100 as well? Strafe and thrust are going to be the same. It's interesting looking back. I guess I shouldn't really judge myself. I was and am still learning. And this is the whole point, right? I just don't think that's gonna work. But yeah, so what I'm saying is, right, I'm putting in strafe, which I put up there as 100, I think. So when I call this move player, when I press A, oh, A is left because I'm a flipping idiot. A is left. When you press A, it's basically for every frame you're holding down A, it's going to move 100. It's going to move 100 on the x-axis, and it's actually going to move in the positive direction, so it is going to move right. Because I would have needed to put in negative strafe. So let's see. Game dev is so much fun, right? Looking at these videos, it may not seem like it, and I know they're all very basic, and I'm making tons of mistakes because I'm learning, and that is how you learn. Yeah, so you can see it is just going up by values of 100, 25, and it was going positive, not negative. And see, D needs to be, yeah. Oh, so I have negative actually. There you go. Negative strafe. Why would I put it on the z-axis? It's the same. So D is now going to go backwards. So I'm going... I can go forwards, I can go backwards, I can go left. Looks like I can go left and right. I'm not... It's easier to tell once I add stuff in. It does look though like I'm going that way, I'm going that way. Yeah. Interesting. I figured out that that's where, yeah, for D needs to be that. A and D. Don't know how I was going. Anyway, it is a lot of fun, is what I was going to say, or what I began to say, and I can't remember the exact point I was going to make. Other than it is, you know, it may not look like it with these by time.delta time. Smooth it out. Yeah, looking at these videos, I do get into more fun stuff eventually, I promise. If I ever get around to those videos, and I will. But it's this, you know, I'm trying to make a simple little space race game, and there's so much to it, so many elements, especially when you're doing it on your own. Okay, so I'm very slowly moving. I'm going to turn up the strafe speed so that it gets a bit quicker. There you go. There we go. But I keep going. Because I think I'll figure out how to fix that as well. I know in this. But I think yeah, I think, I mean, add force was fine. The thing with add force, and I will say this, is that you're adding a force, so you can stop adding that force, but you need to counteract that force to stop the object moving. So like in the travel scene that I'm working on for the group project, there is, if you're, because it's 2D, so it's up and down, but if you're coming down and then you want to go back up, there is a delay as the force negates the upward force negates the downward force. Now it's only small, but it is there, and I chose to put that in because that to me seems more realistic for a spaceship. That's why rigid body dot add force is what I would consider the better one to use. I think, again, because this was last year and I didn't have the ability to record my own audio at the time, it's hard to remember exactly what my problem here is. I'm putting in, see, this is what I mean, it's hard to judge movement, speed, distances when you don't have any frame of reference, so I'm putting in a little plane just to show that there is actually movement happening. But I think if I'm having a problem with it continuously moving, I don't think it's because of the force. I think, and I still get these confused, in the script you'll see for when I'm pressing A and D, I say input.get key. No, I think that's when you press the key, it happens. So once you press that key, it's going to do that. Whereas if I did input.get key down, it will do it while the key is held down. But when the key is not being held down, it will stop. So I think that is where that problem is coming from. If I am having the problem, it looks like I'm having the problem with it not stopping, unless I go the other direction. But I don't know. I might not be. I might have just been holding down that key for ages just for no apparent reason. Yes, but it is a lot of fun. Because, right, you're doing it on your own, there's so much to do, even in a small project, like, especially if you're going to model your own stuff. Now, I didn't model the ships in this myself, but I have been doing projects where I modeled everything, and I have coded everything, I've laid everything out, I've designed, built, basically done everything. because that is what you do. And as an indie developer, you're going to need to wear many different hats. And I love it. I just think it's, I get really frustrated when things don't work. But then when you figure out the problem you've been having for a while, I've done little dances around my room when I've actually figured something out. And there have been witnesses that can attest to that. It is just brilliant. You do get a real sense of accomplishment when you figure out a problem. Let's see. Yeah, if I hover over get key, it would tell me. So maybe I can, if I'm quick, get key. Returns while the user holds down the key. Oh, so get key is that. So get key down must be when you just press it down. And you see, that's why I keep getting confused, because I would have assumed get key is when you press it, and get key down would be when you hold it. Returns while it holds down, get key, yeah. Strange. I don't know why it is that way. Logically, I would have had it the other way around. Get key down would be when you hold the key down. And get key would be when you press the key. And let go. I don't know. But I guess, because get key down, there's also get key up, which is when you release a key. So I guess get key down, get key up is press it down, release it, and get key is just hold it. I think maybe that's a good way to remember it, and that's how I'll try to remember it from now on. So you can see here I've got A and D. So I've got my strafe, and I've got forward, and now I've got rotate. So I'm trying to do rotate, up, down. There is a lot of repetition in this, but that's good because that's how you learn. I find something quite relaxing about writing code. Even when it does stress me out, I know it sounds weird, like I'll get stressed when something isn't working, but I still find coding in general to be quite relaxing. Same as, I think I said this in the graveyard video, that 3D modeling, even though it can be boring, some people would say, I personally think it's more relaxing because, it can be repetitive and finicky and monotonous, but you get into kind of a groove doing it, which I think is quite nice. I need to have a look there, sorry. My mic is over here. There we go, yep, there's my mic. But also so is I have a digital drawing tablet that I use as my second monitor, which I have OBS open on, and I'm trying to keep an eye on the recording time, but my mic is blocking it down at the bottom. So, okay, so now you can see that I'm flying. Oh, I'm flying, Jack. I'll never let you go, Jack. Then she throws him in the water. I mean, what? What a bitch. There was definitely room on that door for the two of them. Sad times. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're young. No, I think what I'm trying to do is turn the mouse off, basically. If you know what that means, I'm trying to make it so that you can't see the cursor. Like you can see my cursor, but in a game where you're using the mouse to move, you don't need to see that, so I would like to have that not be seen. Quite an easy, I think it's one line of code. It's cursor.visible false, if memory serves. But this is me, I think, going to look that up. And again, it's like, it is one line of code, and it is quite easy. But you'd only know it or go to learn it if you needed it. Like, if you didn't need it, then why would you not lock it? You can lock your cursor, I think, to the middle. So as well as turning it off, you could also have it locked in the centers, which is handy for first-person shooters and stuff. I could be talking out my ass there, but I'm pretty sure I've seen that being used. might have actually used it myself in something as well. How long does it take me to Google? There we go. Cursor.visible. False. So when I save that and try it again, you will not see my cursor. You will see this cursor, because this is my current cursor, my present day cursor. You will not see, can you even tell that that's there? You will not see the past me cursor. So if I you see it right now, returns true during the frame and the user starts pressing down the key. So when I start pressing down the keycode.escape, we're going to bring back the cursor. This is just a handy way to test it, because sometimes if you're turning your cursor off, then you have to try to find it again in order to, especially if you maximize the game window in Unity, then, and you need to hit that little play button there. If your cursor is gone, it's difficult to find, so you need to bring your cursor back. So I'm going to move present me cursor off onto my tablet. So that is current me cursor moving. I point at the screen like you can see me. Current me cursor. You can see while it's in the game window, it disappears and it reappears when it's out of the game window. That is because the aspect ratio is 16. What does it say? 1620, 1610. 1610, I would imagine. So it doesn't fully fit my screen, but I've not learned anything about that yet. So I am moving, I can fly, I can tell that I'm flying. So it worked. So not bad. And that is the start of the game. So I think, because I don't know what I do next, I mean, if you think of the game, of a racing game, I need a track and a win condition, and I need to get the other competitors, the AIs, to move. So that's probably what I start on next. But I think we're at just under an hour for this, so I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed this. We are going to get into, I mean, it was nice to show Unity and scripting, Visual Studios. Visual Studios? Yeah. To show C# programming and stuff. There will be more of that in the next few videos. I think this will end up being probably a 5-part series, just based on the amount of recording that I have. But again, that depends on how much I've taken up, how much time is taken up with me just going off and trying to find things online. But yeah, so from here on in, most of the other videos that I have waiting to be done are all games, so it's not just 3D modeling. There will be some episodes that are 3D modeling, but they will be for objects that will be going into a game. So but that is off in the distance somewhere. So hopefully you're all keeping safe during these trying times. Look back on these when this is all over and enjoy them a little bit more. So if you like the video, hit the like button, share it with people if you think anybody might be interested in game development or listening to me ramble on. And please consider subscribing so that we can create a community of people that are like-minded, interested in the same things, and who can help each other out, because I'd love to get feedback on the channel and suggestions on things to work on, because once I finish my college assignments, then I can do whatever. So yeah, see you guys in the next one.